right. Good evening, everybody. It's 9:30 p.m. on the East Coast, 6:30 p.m. on the West Coast. That must mean it's time for your weekly Calamity Jane live stream. James, how are you doing on this spring evening?
I'm doing just dandy. How are you?
I am doing well. What are you going to be working on tonight? Just out of curiosity.
I'm gonna resume where we left off last week. I'm gonna be working on more poses.
Mm-hmm.
I'll share my screen, go into it, and then we can kind of go to our thing.
Okay, hold on. I forgot to prepare it. All right, now you're ready to go.
Yeah. At
It
this point,
happens. It happens sometimes.
all that matters is we know how to fix it.
Right. I got it down to 2 button clicks now. So.
Cool. Yeah, I have some other files open, some mouth pack stuff, really just trying to think ahead a little bit for animation purposes. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so we last left off. Scroll. Let me zoom in a little bit. I'm working on this scene where she jumps off her bike. So we got this pose pretty much there. I mean, I'm gonna still polish up her shoes and stuff, but the basic gist of her pose is here, and then her landing will pretty much. I'll probably pretty much emulate what's happening here in the animatic and just have her kind of
Do a nice cartoon stretch.
yeah, and then settle into her pose here, and then
Mm-hmm.
she's got a neutral mouth here, which is why right now she's kind of happy here. I was looking at her mouth, the mouth packs, and everything here is pretty happy. I thought I did one where she wasn't happy, but I have to look. So anyways, I'm hunting around looking for the any kind of drawings I did where she was not happy, but I don't know if I may have done them in another scene. But anyways, that's not as important as just doing the
Getting the pose right. Yeah.
So I mean, this pose actually is kind of close to
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so I might just look for another pose to do. But I might do a couple more poses, like a couple more drawings to get to this pose. I don't know yet. We'll kind of see. So that's kind of where I'm at tonight. But yeah, as far as me doodling, that's one thing. But as far as us talking, I know you were you let yesterday.
Yeah, I sent you a text message.
Yeah, you sent me a text message to you must see this movie.
Yeah. I went to go see Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a new kung fu movie with set in multiple dimensions. Sorry, I was picking up my dog. Set across multiple dimensions, starring Michelle Yeoh and James Wong, and Jamie Lee Curtis, and it was amazing. I think the text message I sent you was something along the lines of this may be one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, I'm looking at my phone right now just to see. But yeah, you pretty much said that. Top five. Like I was like, man, that's big words from you because you're pretty picky with your movies. And stuff.
I am extremely picky, and my top 5 is not. It doesn't shift much. My top 5 is Eternal Sun in no particular order. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Brick, Fury Road, Inglourious Bastards, and Fight Club. And yeah, this is I might have to remove one of those from the list.
What?
Yeah, we'll see. We will see. That movie just got under my skin in a way that most movies don't. I watch a movie and it's fun. This isn't like a negative thing. I sit and think about the directing. I sit and think about the plotting and the structure and performances. And I don't usually watch movies as a fan anymore. The way that fans will watch a Marvel movie and they can just enjoy it for the spectacle that it is. But for whatever reason, this movie I just got lost in. I just completely lost myself in it. And when it finally ended, I was really sad that it was over.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I texted you and I said, you need to go see this movie. It's worth seeing it in theaters. And then you bought tickets and you went to see it last night, I presume.
Last night, Amit and I went and saw last night.
It's one of the advantages of you living on the West Coast. I can see something, and then you have enough time that you can then go see it before it's too late.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, you're kind of like the scout. You're like my movie scout.
A movie scout, yeah, absolutely. So I'm almost afraid to ask. what your thoughts were.
I mean, I liked it. It's funny. Like I haven't watched a movie with Amita where she laughed. She laughed a lot in the movie.
Hmm.
So I think she was thoroughly entertained in her bath. But for me, I just was watching it. It almost felt like there was a moment during the movie where I was feeling like I was kind of watching a Scott Pilgrim type of movie, where just nonsensical stuff being thrown at the screen, and I just got to deal with it, you know. And so that's kind of how I felt for the longest time in the movie until and I'm trying to be spoiler free just in case anybody watches it because I want them to enjoy the movie fresh without any.
Sure.
But there was a key moment where there was a turning point in the movie where it became more endearing. It was really special and very kind of quote unquote. I mean, I don't know, heartwarming in a way. I thought it was,
Which was completely unexpected for me.
yeah,
It took a turn that I was not expecting it to take.
yeah, and that to me personally was the saving grace for the movie because for a while there, I was kind of just the shock. There was some elements that were shock, but it was done within the context of the movie, so it was okay. But it was a point where I was sort of desensitized. So like whatever you're gonna throw at me, I'm not gonna be shocked anymore.
Hmm.
And I thought that's how the rest of the movie's gonna go. And then it did, and then it kind of would go, it would do throwbacks to elements of that, but it never, but only because of telling the story. So it was a very well made. I feel like a really well made, well executed, well edited movie. I thought it was a terrific movie. Probably one. It should be a candidate for movie of the year, I would think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Now I didn't get. I'm envious that you were engrossed in it to the point where you were watching as a fan. I never got to the point where I was a fan. I
Hmm.
was watching purely from just watching it and deconstructing how the stuff was being put together. And like I said, I was watching the editing and I was just like blown away by it. So
Yeah.
I think on the technical execution point of view, the movie was phenomenal. It was great. I don't know if I put it in my top five, but I really liked it. I thought it was excellent. I'm really happy I saw it on the big screen. I thought that the spectacle was amazing. And I think it's one of the movies where it's like a slow burn where I have to see it one or two more times to really absorb other stuff that's going on because it's a really meaty, heavy movie.
Yeah, there was a lot there.
In there, yeah. Which I'm assuming was part of the reason why you like this.
Hmm.
There's so many ways to go with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I liked it. I really liked it. Yeah.
I admit you're not the only person I texted. I'm not, a monogamist when it comes to texting my love of this movie. I apologize. Um, I spread it around, baby. I spread it around.
Other friends
Um,
go see it. Recommend?
what's that?
Did other friends go see it on your
No,
recommendation?
but I texted my friend Jeff and I said we have to go. I want to go see this again. It's worth seeing in the
Uh-huh.
theater. Come with me.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
hopefully we'll get something scheduled maybe this weekend. On like I'm going to a soccer game on Saturday, but maybe on like Friday night or Sunday night we'll go. But yeah, all of those things that you said are true. The editing was just incredible. The directing, the fight choreography, the way that the directors handled all the integration of this multiverse storytelling,
Yeah.
and related to that, the screenplay, the way that it shifted from a silly comedy kung fu movie into something that was, I mean, incredibly heartfelt and for me, incredibly touching.
Hmm.
Um, it really took me by surprise. And I love Michelle Yeoh too. I mean, I have a bias. I think she's a phenomenal actor, incredibly underrated. I've loved her in everything I've seen her in. And I don't see her in enough stuff. And this was just an absolute tour de force for her. I just really, really loved it. And and I didn't know the girl who played her daughter. I didn't recognize her, but she was just excellent, right? I mean, it just really, really excellent. And I'm gonna check something here.
Hmm.
I just want to see something here. Um, I know the guy who plays the husband. I swear I've seen him in something before,
Okay.
and I'm wondering, like where? I'm just trying to figure it out. Yeah, and I was right. That was Short Round from Temple of Doom.
What?
The dad was Short Round from Temple of Doom. I didn't want to say it until I was 100%.
Oh, you should have said it. You should have said it out loud. I wanted to. Yeah, that would have been fun to see you go on a limb like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I didn't want to make a fool of myself. I couldn't build that confidence. But yeah, that was Short Round. It's like, what a cast. Yeah. His name is Ke Hui Kwan. I hope I'm not mutilating that pronunciation, but probably I am. But yeah, it was. It just the performances were excellent. It was just like the dealing with the strife of their marriage, dealing with the fractured relationship with the daughter, dealing with this kind of sense of loss and being out of space and out of time, this ambivalence towards life that results from that. It's really interesting. A lot of the metaphors that were explored in the movie are metaphors that I explore in my own writing. Um, I have a saying. Sometimes I feel like I'm sitting to the 6 inches to the left of the rest of the world, right? Sort of like I just feel slightly out of place, slightly out of time. Like somehow I'm just not exactly in the right moment that I'm supposed to be in, right? And yeah, that really just like the nature of that sense really, really resonated to me, and I really felt that they brought it through in the film. And then, related to that, and I'm cautious here, but the giant MacGuffin, right, which was hilarious, that the villain is pursuing through the course of the movie, or is working to utilize over the course of the movie. The concept of it as this abyss that you look into and you can lose yourself into is very reminiscent of another sort of visual image that comes up a lot in my writing, this notion of the black knot, where it's this object where if you don't look directly into it, it looks like a giant ball of knotted rope, right? Just this mass of confusion and constriction and loss of order, right? It's pure chaos. But then when you look directly at it, it turns into an abyss that you can lose yourself in, right? So this is a visual metaphor that I use a lot in my more serious writing. And so the fact that not only does it discuss the nature of feeling out of sorts with the world through the concept of the multiverse, but also the MacGuffin being such a similar metaphor to things that I've explored in my own writing, it was eerie, right? And as a result, it had a personal effect on me. So obviously I feel like that there are some biases as a result of that.
Yeah, that's cool though. That's great that you saw something where it resonated with you on a more personal level. Which is what. So we have this term. I don't want to sound pretentious or
No, be pretentious. Let's do it.
Yeah, but
Let's
in
get
our
high
school we
and
have.
mighty.
Yeah, but in our school we have this thing where when we're creating stuff or we're analyzing stuff, there's this thing called psychic distance, where you maintain a psychic distance from what your subject matter is, whatever you're doing, or if you're studying something where you don't get emotionally involved with it and you simply study it. I don't know, to a certain point where you're reducing it down and trying to digest it visually, and or whatever your medium you are trying to process it in, but you never get emotionally involved with it. So it seems to me what happened to you in this one, because even though we artists or creatives want to do something and maintain a psychic distance, we ultimately want to eliminate that psychic distance when we engage with the viewer, because we're already cynical enough, right?
But it's a hard balance to. It's a weird thing. You have to occupy two states of mind at the same time.
Yeah. So which is cool. Which is cool to me. Which is why I'm envious of you, because you were able. Because I can be very cynical when I'm watching something and I end up not appreciating for what it is. Like sometimes I won't even follow the story because I'm looking at the color choices or the composition of the shot, and then I'll ask like my wife, what was the story again? And then she'll have to fill me in, so I'm not getting caught up in it. It's really sad. It's really annoying. Maybe I'm just getting older, and it could be that too. But yeah, when you were saying how you're ranting and raving about a movie like that, like it hasn't, like that type of stuff hasn't happened to me in a while. Where
nor I.
Yeah, but I will say, but that's not true either, because Severance to me was that high note. The
Mm.
season finale to me was where I wanted to text you and go, "Hey, you need to see the season finale of Severance," because I was completely engulfed in that one. I mean, that's a whole other thing we can talk about later. But I know we're talking about this movie, but I know we both have to like Severance,
Oh
a
yeah,
lot.
no. The season finale of Severance was phenomenal. It's some of the best TV season of TV I've seen in a very very long time. It was extremely powerful stuff. Yeah, I totally agree with you. But it's interesting now that you say it out loud. Like people have asked me, like why my five movies? Why those? Right? Why are my top five movies those
Oh, like
top
that.
five? Right?
It was
It was yeah.
it was
Again, in no particular order: Eternal Sunshine and the Spotless Mind, Brick,
Glorious Bastard,
Inglorious
Brick.
Bastards, Fury Road, and Fight Club.
Yeah.
And
All right.
all five of those movies, I am incapable of keeping that psychic distance. When I watch those, I get lost in the movie. No matter how many times I watch any of those movies, I am just watching it as a fan. Now, all of those movies I've seen so many times now, I can
Yeah.
break down and I can do the forensic analysis on it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it actually takes a conscious effort to do that. Whereas in most movies, it's relatively easy for me to maintain that psychic distance and think about it on the standpoint of its technical merits, for lack of a better term. But all of those five movies, and now Everything Everywhere All at Once, um, I lose myself in the movie, and I don't even try to. Right? I mean, like the even to this, like just thinking about it right now, the scene in Fury Road where uh, um, Lux is, I think his name is Lux. They're going into the sandstorm, and he's driving in the car, and there's this tornado, and it's just this frenetic camera move that George Miller has sped up slightly, and it like dollies in right up and close into his face, and he goes, "Oh, what a glorious day!" Right? Oh, it's just this perfect moment. I mean, it's beautifully shot. All the color correction is phenomenal. The special effects are phenomenal. And it's just, I mean, and that movie is just filled with so many moments like that. And I quote, like, whenever I know I'm going to have a really tough day, the line that Max says when they realize that they have to turn around and go back the way they came in the third act, and he looks at Furiosa and he goes, "It's gonna be a hard day," right? Like, it's just like, I mean, it's such a simple sentence, but when you think about it in the context of what they've just been through, and now what they have to go through again, like the weight of that simple sentence, it's just, oh, So yeah, and like my favorite ending of any movie ever, and people think I'm crazy when I say this, but Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is maybe the most romantic movie I've ever seen. And people go, "What? This is about like a girl who erases her memory of her ex-boyfriend, and he erases his memory of hers, in revenge, but then regrets it, right?"
Is that the Jim Carrey
That's
movie?
Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet, who I will love always. I just think she is the most gorgeous woman ever. So,
Uh-huh.
I've got a bias there. And it was written by Charlie Kaufman, who's one of my favorite screenwriters, and directed by Michel Gondry, who's just, I think, is an amazing surrealist director. He
Uh-huh.
did The Science of Sleep as well, which, starring Gabriel Garcia Bernal, which is phenomenal. But any case, ultimately the doctors succeed and they erase Jim Carrey's memory, and Kate Winslet's memory has been erased, and statute of limitations, as far as I'm concerned, is over on this movie, so I have no regrets spoiling it. Um, but a disgruntled employee sends them their personal files along with a tape explaining why they're having their memory erased, right? And they both listen to the tape and they realize that they've been in this relationship together, and it explains why they were drawn to each other, why they find themselves on the train at the beginning of the movie together. And Kate Winslet tells Jim Carrey's character Joel, like, I'm gonna screw up again, and I'm gonna leave you again, and I'm just broken in that way, and I can't promise you that this is going to work because I don't think it will. And the last line of the movie is Jim Carrey thinks about what she's saying, and he says, "Okay," because his love for her is more important than the potential that it could end. And it's just, I don't know, it's one of the most beautiful, for me, moments in a movie. This idea that you can love someone despite the fact that you know it's going to end.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, those are the movies that I just, when I watch them, it's easy for me to lose myself in them.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you on Fury Road. I mean, that might be up in my top 10. I never thought about my top 5 movies for some reason. So now I got to think about that. But Fury Road's up there. I watched that like 4 times in the
Yeah,
theater. Loved it.
yeah, and in Glorious Bastards, literally there are two scenes in that. I mean, the entire first scene with Christoph Waltz, I'd never seen him before, right?
Oh.
And he's playing Hans Landa.
Mhm.
I forget to breathe watching that scene. Like, I've seen Inglourious Bastards so many times now, I can't keep track.
One time, so yeah, I don't even know what you're talking about. I have to go. I have to see it one more. I'll eventually have to see it one of these days again.
Yeah, and
But,
but
yeah.
it's so tense, I forget to breathe. And then one of my favorite moments in all of cinema is the scene where Michelle Memmieu is getting ready to burn her theater down, right, in the third act. And she's wearing this gorgeous red dress, and she's got this red beret, and she's putting on makeup like she's putting on war paint, and David Bowie's Putting Out Fire with Gasoline is playing in the music, which is completely anachronistic for the time period, but fits perfectly with the theme. And then she sits in this window that's shaped like the iris of an eye, looking down over the remainder of the theater, and it's just this. It's a quintessential moment. I mean, it is a quintessential moment in cinema, right? Like, this is the type of thing that film teachers should teach their students about a perfect moment in cinema, right? I lose myself every time I watch those movies. So I'm sorry. That was a big old rant, and
It's not a rant at all. It's a rave. It's different.
yeah,
Raving. It's a
yeah,
different thing. We're raving in class today. It's very
yeah.
different than
It's a rare opportunity to see what happens when Eric actually loves something. Um, but yeah, and yeah, so Everything Everywhere All at Once, I lost myself in that movie. I from the trailer I knew I was going to like it, right?
uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
I just, the family angle, the marriage problems angle, the feeling out of place in time, the MacGuffin, right? The kind of the abyssal MacGuffin that is a central conceit of the film.
Yeah.
I just, yeah, when it ended, I was sad that it was over. I just wanted to live in that world for a couple of minutes longer, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Like there were so many different levels that resonated with my wife and I because we have the Eastern cultural influence was definitely there.
sure.
So we both kind of lived that being firstborn. So we firstborns here, but so all that was all the humor that having an immigrant mom was all there in it. So we were laughing quite a bit at that, especially me. But yeah, it really there's so much content in that movie that I feel like I need to. I mean, I need to. I only have so much time to process everything, and I know I'll appreciate it the more times I watch it. Because there's always something else that I know I missed. Even especially those really quickie flash scenes of just the amount of costumes they put all the actresses in just to
Yeah, yeah.
represent.
It was an incredibly visually dense movie, but I mean that in the best
Yeah,
possible way, right?
exactly. It's the opposite of the Fifth Element, which I was worn out and I didn't want to ever see it again.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, or Endgame for that matter. I was so exhausted by that movie, but not in a good way.
Endgame, yeah.
Yeah, I mean we've spoken about that. Now we're getting back to normal Eric territory. Um,
which is funny because okay, so I went in with it kind of skeptical, but you talked me out of it with your text. But I was like telling you, like, I don't know if I want to see another multiverse movie. They've gotten to a point where it's
Right.
annoying, because they keep using multiverse movie
Right.
a lot of time. It's like, oh my gosh, Marvel. And it is, I think you and I talked about it offline and someplace else, but yeah, it is Marvel's fault because they started running with it like crazy, especially as they wrapped up Avengers. And and the new Doctor Strange movie. I'm sure the term multiverse is in there somewhere. It's like, okay, I can't. I don't know if I want to. It's
Yeah,
a
I
really
mean,
fun
yeah,
concept, but
right,
not like
exactly.
movie needs to have this.
Yeah, I mean, they might as well just cancel the new Doctor Strange movie because the multiverse has been done, and this Doctor Strange movie is never going to be as good as
Yeah,
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
yeah. That's the thing is, I think they really hit their mark with this movie because it's like you don't really need to see another multiverse movie.
Yeah, and for me, this is the classic example of I still love superhero movies. I just don't like corporate superhero movies. And Everything Everywhere All at Once is the example of that. I mean, if you boil it down, it is a superhero movie. Michelle Yeoh plays a superhero, right?
Yeah.
Um, and hell, the plot is probably, in a taken from a 30,000-foot view, is probably not dissimilar to what's the weirdness that's going to happen in the Doctor Strange movie, right? I mean, you watch the trailers, there's evil Doctor Who, there's zombie Doctor Who, or not Doctor Who, I'm sorry, Doctor Strange.
Yeah. We all get it. Doctor Strange, yes.
Yeah, and it's just, but it's all pre-canned, it's all homogenized and pasteurized, right? There's no risk. There's a baseline level of quality, but Marvel doesn't really have any desire to exceed their comfortable numbness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Everything Everywhere All at Once, it took a ton of chances. I mean, it really went on a limb on some of the things that it decided to do, and it was the sum of the parts was far greater than the whole. For me, and that's just not the type of movie that the new Doctor Strange is going to be. It is trying to hit the sweet spot of Marvel movie fans. It's not going to take any risks. It's not going to do anything unexpected or go in any interesting directions, which is a real shame because Sam Raimi's directing it. And Sam Raimi, the reason I used to love him is because he would do crazy stuff, and because he would take these insane risks. And out of that came movies like Evil Dead 2 and A Simple Plan and Darkman and Drag Me to Hell and just these crazy out of left field movies. And now, and even the first two Spider-Man movies, they were really helping set the tone for what ultimately became.
I really like those Spider movies. His favorite still.
Yeah, but it was it was sort of like a no man's land. Nobody knew what to expect, and so Sony kind of let him have his way with it.
Yeah,
but
that's what it seemed like happening in Spider-Man 3. Is then everyone wanted to have their
exactly. Yeah, Spider-Man 3 came around, and he and Ivan, the two, him and his brother writing it, they were forced to put Venom in the movie, right? And when Sony came in and started dictating all these terms, I mean, he's even admitted it. He and Ivan have even admitted it. They just lost interest in the movie.
Yeah, it feels like it was phoned in. I mean, even the action.
Yeah.
Points,
I mean, they made fun of evil Peter Parker in No Way Home, right? They made an oblique reference to when he was emo Parker. There was one throwaway joke that no one would get unless you understood that. But this, I guarantee you, the new Doctor Strange movie will be more in line with Spider-Man 3, where Raimi is completely hamstrung by the corporate overlords at Marvel and Disney, right?
Here's something though. So, what's considered a risk for it's not. I mean, it's a Marvel movie. You can't. What are the risks that you can do? The only character that you're allowed to really do any risks with is Deadpool, because you're expecting to do that, right? Because he has the IP built in. But you can't. What can you really do with Spider-Man with risks? You can't do what you did in this movie. I can't even. The movie we saw yesterday. whatever the title is, you can't like that's a independent type of movie, right? That they can do whatever you want with it. But Spider-Man, I'm not trying to give away any spoilers, but you can't have Peter Parker doing the things that were happening in that movie um, without a feeling just out of place for the character, right? I mean, that's the thing.
I mean, I think you can, and I don't think like
But
I don't think somehow I don't know how, but Taika Waititi convinced Marvel to let him take Thor in a very different direction with Thor Ragnarok.
I'll give you an
And
example. I'll give you an example, Eric. What about that scene where she's fighting with these two controversial batons?
yeah.
You can't do that with
Well,
Spider-Man.
you don't need to whip out sex toys to be controversial. I mean, it was funny within the context of that movie, and
Yes, yes,
if
yes.
when people see it, there is actually context for why it ended up being those
Yeah,
things.
but it's still a risk to do that.
Sure, but I mean, everything everywhere all at once was rated R, so they can take
Yeah,
risks in that way.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that Doctor Strange needs to be rated R, but you can still work within a family-friendly environment and go in different directions with the character,
yeah.
right? And I just don't think that they're going to do anything that could even be remotely considered a risk for the character, right?
So,
Like,
so the question is, what would be a risk for Doctor Strange?
I mean, it's a good question.
Like, what could you do with him? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
I
that's
mean,
not.
I'll be honest. I don't really care for Doctor Strange as a character in general. He was
Yeah,
never one of my favorite characters in the Marvel universe. Um,
yeah.
and honestly, when the movie started bringing in magic into the scenario, it basically throw everything out with the bathwater, right? Like once magic is involved, then there's no real limits. There's no bounds to the universe anymore, right?
Mhm.
And therefore there are no stakes, right? Magic is infinite, so there's no stakes anymore, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Um, and that's not necessarily true. Like there was a really great run in DC, Justice League Dark, right? With John Constantine and Zatanna and Swamp Thing and Enchantress and a few other interesting characters that were all part of the Magic sub universe of the DC continuity, right? And then, and I don't know if you read it. I think I recommended it to you. The first storyline of Swamp Thing and Animal Man in the New 52 continuity was phenomenal. It really explored the concept of the red, green, and the black, right? Where Animal Man represents fauna, Swamp Thing represents flora, and I don't remember who the character was. This other character it was a Swamp Thing character, represents the black, or death, right? And so Animal Man and Swamp Thing have to team up to fight back, as representatives of life had to team up to fight against the darkness of death, right?
Yeah.
It was a really great storyline, but in those instances, the magic is somewhat self-contained, right? I mean, Batman and Superman will make cameos, but that's more to appease the, you know,
Yeah. To drive dollars or.
exactly. Um, but with when you combine magic with technology, as Marvel has done, it throws everything out the window for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's fair. Like I don't really know how you take risks with Doctor Strange because he's not a particularly compelling character in the first place, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the only thing. I think the advantage of doing something unique, I mean, doing something independent where there's no history to fall back on. There's no built-in expectations for the audience to go. That doesn't feel like on model or on character. No, Michelle, the writers can do whatever they want with her. And what's great is if they ever want to do again, if they ever want to do a sequel, which I hope they don't,
I
I
hope
think
they
they should just
don't.
leave it.
This is this perfect
Yeah,
thing, right?
it's little. It's perfect. Yes, exactly. But if there were corporate overlords, they would be trying to milk it in. But they'd have a character where they could do whatever they want because they've established it. The rules are all there for. Just like again, like Deadpool is kind of for what Marvel is. Like that's their golden goose to do that type of stuff. But then it's not gonna feel. It's gonna feel artificial anyway without the right writer on Deadpool to me anyway. But
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, they've all but confirmed that Deadpool is now a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
yeah,
They
yeah.
claim that the third one is still going to be rated R, so Ryan Reynolds can still do all of his fun stuff. But I just don't. I don't see it, quite frankly. Um,
Did
what's that?
you like Deadpool?
I like the first one. I thought it was
Yeah.
silly. It was disposable. It wasn't.
Yeah,
Um,
nothing.
I didn't
Yeah.
go head over heels for it like some people did,
Uh-huh.
but I enjoyed it. Um,
Yeah, I liked it too. To me, it was a good. It's a good. I mean, it hit the mark. It's exactly what I would expect a Deadpool movie to be. Perfect actor to play the role. I had no issues with it. Deadpool 2 was all right. It wasn't as good as the first one.
no, yeah, it wasn't. I don't really know what to expect from the third one, honestly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I guess we'll see. I don't know. I'll go see it. I like Ryan Reynolds. I think he does more bad movies than good movies these days. But um,
yeah.
like I watched The Adam Project on Netflix.
Uh-huh.
You know, again,
Any, any,
it's like I love. I think Ryan Reynolds is hilarious. I think he's got a lot of potential as an actor. I love Zoe
mhm.
Saldana. I love Catherine Keener. Catherine Keener is one of my favorite actors of all time. And despite the star power in that movie, and Mark Ruffalo has done some stuff that I really like as well. I mean, there was a lot of. I mean, Jennifer Garner was in it, but no movie is perfect. I've never liked Jennifer Garner.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, same here.
but she just I don't know. She just her performance style doesn't it doesn't jive with me. I mean, it's just a personal thing, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, uh, you have all this really really strong cast. A pretty fun idea. What if Flight of the Navigator was an action movie, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was Flight of the Navigator meets Guardians of the Galaxy to a certain extent.
Mhm.
Um, and and yet it was just really bland. It was disposable, right? I finished movie watching it and going, well, I enjoyed that for the 2 hours it was on. I don't
Mhm.
remember anything about the movie, and it just ended. I have already forgotten the entire movie that I just watched. But
Mhm.
it was while I was watching it, it wasn't the worst thing ever. Except they
Yeah.
did that horrible, gross CG de aging thing for Catherine Keener, and
Uh-huh.
she just looked so bizarre. It was just like, oh, it was worse than the Leia thing from Star Wars Rogue One. It was worse
Yeah.
than the de aging they did on The Irishman. It was worse than like it was what some of the worst de aging I've ever seen in any movie ever. And I'm including Patrick Stewart and X-Men 3 for God's sake, The Last Stand. Oof. Anyway, this is more what the audience comes to listen to. Not this me being teary-eyed over the most romantic ending of a movie of all time.
Oh, it's
Me
fun to.
criticizing.
Let's go back to the happy thoughts stuff
Yeah,
too, though. I don't think I think it's worth. I mean, for the tens of viewers, if you're looking for a really fun movie, not for kids, but a
definitely
really
not
fun
for
movie,
children. No.
yeah, it's terrific. And especially if you have a if you like sci-fi, um, but you also like heartfelt. I mean, it's got everything in it. Like it's amazing how much they packed into that cereal box for that movie.
Yeah,
And funny thing is, I mean, the runtime was kind of intimidating when we were looking at it. Two
it's like
hours and 20 minutes.
yeah, it's almost 2.5 hours long. Yeah,
Yeah, but I feel like it picked it up. It picked up and went pretty much from the get go. Like it kind of did a little bit of a little bit of building, a little bit towards the beginning, and then you were just running off to the races. I mean, you
yeah,
never had a chance
yeah.
to really. Yeah,
Oh,
it was.
it just Jamie Lee Curtis once again proves why she is one of my favorite actors.
Yeah, she
Just
was
the she
awesome.
is willing to take these risks and willing to be so silly and she was
Yeah,
delightful in that movie and it just came out of nowhere.
yeah,
The character she played was just so hysterical and just oh man, I really love it. Was just the cast was just so good. It was just so good. Um, yeah, just a really great, just really great movie. One of those rare movies where I can't help but lose myself in it. Right.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And this is coming
Uh,
from someone who, when my mother still lived down here, I told her, look, I will never say no to going to see a movie. I don't care if I want to see it. I don't care,
Yeah.
if I think I'm going to hate it. I will always go see a movie. I'm always happy to be proven wrong. I love it when I'm proven wrong, in fact.
Yeah.
Um, and and so she took it to heart, and so we went and saw a ton of movies together. And in the beginning, it would frustrate her because we'd get out of a movie and she go, I really like that. And then I'd go, well, here are my thoughts. and
Yeah.
yeah. And, and I remember one time she stopped and she said, do you even like movies? And I was like, no, I love movies. This is why I do this, because.
Are you my son?
Yeah.
Are you my son? Why are you? Yeah.
I mean, it's her fault. She got me into movies. It was just a confluence of events. In high school, I was working at Blockbuster. The AFI had done the first of their, top 100 list. Right?
Yeah. They had the whole like section for that, right?
Yeah, this is like in '98, I think, because I was a junior or a senior in high school.
Yeah.
'98 or '99. I think it was '98. Anyway, so Blockbuster did a massive cross promotion with the AFI, and we had to like put stickers on all the movies in the Blockbuster that were on the list, right? Mm-hmm. And then while this is happening, and I got 5 free rentals a week, right? Which was like, for a high school student who loved video games, before this I just used all 5 of my free rentals renting video games.
Yeah.
Anyway, while all this is happening, we were watching Seinfeld, and there was a reference to The Godfather 2. They made some joke about The Godfather 2, and I remember my mother laughing hysterically, and it went over my head, right? Huh? And I went, I don't get it. And she went, oh, okay, this is unacceptable. You have to see the Godfather trilogy. And the Godfather 1 and 2 were both on the 100 best list, right? And so this just basically, it started a thing. This happened over summer too, so I wasn't in school. And so we proceeded to just go through the 100, best movies list over the course of the summer, and we got through about halfway through the movies. We didn't see all of them, but we got about halfway through them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and after that, I was hooked. I was changed for that experience. Yeah, and I've pursued a passion for film ever since that point. Like once I went through that list and I saw what movies could be, right? Mm-hmm. I couldn't watch things like Ace Ventura anymore, right? It had no interest for me anymore, right? I saw something beyond that, and the things like that, just where it was just meaningless gross out humor, it lost a lot of its meaning to me for a long time. Now that's come back to a certain extent, right? I mean, I could appreciate a good gross out humor, but for a long time, it was just like, oh wait, this actually is an art form. Like, movies can actually make me feel things, Mm-hmm. And so I chased that dragon for a really long time. And I still am, quite frankly. But anyway, that was a trip down memory lane. But I broke my mom though, because she wanted to go see Judy, that Reese Witherspoon, Judy Garland biopic, right? I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. So we went and we got out of it, and we're walking back to the car, and I said, what did you think? And she went, I didn't like it. And I was like, oh, really? And she's like, yeah. And then she started describing the exact reasons why she didn't like it. Well, her performance was good, but they took a lot of liberties, and I just didn't understand the continuity, and why did they open blah, 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 blah. And she was like, oh, God, what have you done to me?
That's so funny.
Yeah. So, so it was just one of those things. And then she moved to Tennessee, and now we don't go see movies anymore. But there was also this thing called the pandemic, which ended up closing a bunch of movie theaters, and it still hasn't recovered, honestly, unless it's like a big Marvel movie. Although I was surprised, like it was at one of the smaller theaters in the multiplex. But it was a still pretty full house. Like it wasn't sold out, but there was a good 30 people in the theater. So
Yeah, for us, um, I would say it was about 25% full. And this is in LA,
yeah,
so
it
this
was in
is movie
LA.
went.
Yeah,
But people were clapping. People were really appreciative of it. That's one thing I gotta say. Again, not to go down the pretentious lane, but
no, take it.
LA, like they love when there's a movie, a lot of people here are in the industry, so
Mm-hmm.
they'll clap, they'll hoot and holler for a good performance, everything. Like there were times where um after a certain martial arts scene when we finished, there was tons of clapping because of the choreography, because
Was
that
just so
how wonderful.
amazing. I know
That,
that
you know that's the
the
thing.
first scene with the fanny pack, the first fight sequence with the fanny pack was just hilarious. And then
Yeah.
when he he does the thing with the lip balm, and you're like, what is going what? And then they explain it later, and you come back and you're like, that's why he was doing that. Like it was just
There's so many, yeah. See, there's so many moments like that I want to go back and watch it because there's so many things I missed
yeah.
um, watching it that I want to just little side, little subtle little things that they chock it's chock full of tons of little side stories
Yeah.
that make me watch it again.
And the
Yeah.
other thing that I love too about the ending, and I'll try to not spoil it here, but um, it was hopeful, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Things were still broken. There was still trauma. There were still things that people had to work through, but there was hope.
Mhm.
There was potential for reconciliation. There was
Yeah.
potential for recovery, right? I like that because it's far more realistic than what you're so used to with movies, which is everybody's happy and lives ever happily ever after from here on out, right? Um,
Yeah.
like okay, for instance, I saw Coda, which is also just a delightful movie. Really, really enjoy. It was a sweet,
Yeah.
heartfelt movie. The family drama was what a great idea with a deaf family and the one hearing daughter who wants to be a singer.
Yeah.
Really excellent movie. Well done. Fun fact: I had a friend. She was here all week this last week. Her friend's uncle
Mm-hmm.
was the star, was the father in that film.
Oh wow, he did a
Yeah.
great job.
So I'm like 3 degrees removed from an Academy Award winner. Um, but I really enjoyed it. I liked it. But I couldn't help thinking at the ending, like, she's never going to stick with that boy, right? And her brother's not going to stick with that girl. They're teenagers, right? And
Yeah.
God, I hope they don't. Like, there's so much of life that they're not going to experience if they're going to
Yeah.
stick with these partners at the age of 18 and 20. No, get out there, experience the world, like meet other people.
Yeah.
Um, and so I couldn't help but like this. It was a little bit too Hollywood for me. The ending was. I mean, and
Uh,
I'm nitpicking now because I really did like Coda a lot. Did I think it was the best movie? No, but it was a really really fun, good movie.
Yeah, yeah. It was good. I'm with you on that one too. But what's funny is so my second distance was broken down in Coda during a very special moment between daughter and father. And again, I'll try to
Oh,
avoid.
are you talking about towards the end when they're sitting on the
Yeah,
train? Oh yeah, no, I lost it. I lost it at that
yeah.
moment. Yeah.
So I had that moment with Coda, but I did not. Again, I did not have it with. I'm sorry, I can't.
Everything everywhere all at once. It's not an easy to remember title. There's no question about it.
But I can't. I never had that moment. I almost did, but I didn't with the movie. But it's okay. It's
No, no,
still
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the best. It's still the best movie that's come out this year so far in this semi-young year.
yeah.
But I will say this: there were moments, but it didn't give me a chance to really breathe. But there were moments where I kept asking because once you open up this could be another hour conversation. We'll do this another time. But once you open up the box of like it's a multiverse, anything can happen. Like
Yeah.
it's like oh, you could be you could be from primordial ooze or everything like that. Well, like in my head, I'm thinking like really, so this is only like I started getting cynical about asking questions I didn't want to. I really didn't because I wanted to just enjoy the movie.
Well,
But it was,
it's interesting. I know exactly what you mean, and I did
yeah,
have those brief moments where like, wait, what? But then I just kept getting lost back into the film.
yeah, that's the key. That's what makes it such a good movie.
Yeah, and it was I finally understood. So I mean, I hated Endgame. I don't think that this is a surprise. I think we've
Yeah,
beaten that dead horse so many times
sure.
that they're going to etch it onto my tombstone. But uh, my friend was like, why can't you just get lost in it? Why can't you just sit and enjoy it like a fan? And I'm
Mhm.
like, because it was dumb. It was just stupid. I don't understand. I don't understand what you mean. Like, I don't understand why you feel the way that you feel, right?
Uh,
And then I chuckled to myself when that movie ended,
yeah.
because I finally understood what my friend was talking about. It wasn't about Endgame. I still think Endgame was garbage. Um, oh, you know what's interesting, though? Sorry, I'm pounding on the desk. You know who produced it?
Russo brothers.
Yeah, the Russo brothers did.
We also did this one, yeah, which is
Yeah,
another.
they still, I mean, they clearly have a lot of talent still. It's just, hey, look, when Marvel backs a truck of, $1 million bills up to your house, how do you say no to that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's funny, I've been following them since Community, right? Like
Uh,
that's the first time I saw the Russo brothers is when they were working on Community.
uh, it's funny. I like Community a lot too, but I didn't really notice their names until the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
So those I guess. But
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it was their vision. It was their directorial eye that made Community what it was, right? Like they directed. I believe that they directed the paintball episode,
oh
and the
really?
paintball episode is what put Community on the map. That's what turned that show into Community. Was the paintball episode?
So here's the thing though. Here's the question though. So they're credited as producers though. So it's really the Kwan was a writer, and I think Daniel was a writer. I don't remember.
Daniel, yeah, it was Daniel Kwan and Daniel something. I don't remember his name,
Yeah,
and they
I
just
mean,
go by the Daniels basically. So
and then who directed it? Did they direct it as
yeah, they
well?
directed it as well.
So were they? Did they get pointers from the Russo brothers, maybe, or
If
do you think?
I would like to believe that the Russo brothers talked to them about it. I mean, like they'd be crazy not to take the advice of those guys. I mean, they are the premier action directors working in Hollywood right now.
Yeah,
I've got to believe because they were listed as producers, not executive producers, right? Um, and so it's possible that they were just running the or having their lackeys do it and then took credit for it. It's possible, but I'd like to believe that the Rousseau brothers at least had some hand in giving them some guidance on some of the stuff to do, right? And the directing, I mean, I got that sense. Like when their names came up in the production credit, I'm like, that makes sense, right?
yeah,
Because there were some shots, there were some moments that are like, oh, I've seen that in The Winter Soldier. Oh, I've seen that in Paintball.
sure.
Um, so but yeah, it's so they still are incredibly talented creators. I just think that you have responsibilities to this multi-billion-dollar franchise, and ultimately you're not the ones calling the shot. You're working within a sandbox, and you have to play only with the toys that you're provided, basically.
Yeah,
So but when they don't, then in the earlier days when Marvel hadn't really put the hard lockdown on everything, right? They could do weird stuff like make a Captain America movie that was more of a '70s spy thriller than a superhero movie, right? you know. So, but in any case, um, yeah, we've been going for quite a while here, and it's good. I mean, we never like 30 minutes was always just sort of an arbitrary limit. It wasn't a hard and fast rule, but we've got 6 minutes until we're at an hour, so we might as well like catch up on what you've been working on while we
great.
have been doing our geekdom,
Yeah,
and then
um,
wrap it up for the evening.
yeah. I mean, as you can see on my screen, I've been just kind of going back and forth, and I'm fine tuning the animation. But like, yes, she actually jumped off her bike tonight. That's pretty
Yeah, she
cool.
really did. Yeah.
Got down to her bike. I mean, I'm just fine tuning a few things here and there. As you can see, I'm kind of moving the arms here and there, and I'm trying to polish off my arcs a little bit. But yeah, I'm really happy. This is a very productive. I mean, like every stream's productive for us. We always have
Always, yeah. It's never a waste of time. Never.
yes, but this one, boy, I got a couple of. I went from one drawing here to one, two, three, four, about 3.5 drawings. Of course, recycling some parts as I go.
Well, yeah.
And stuff here and there. So I'm pretty happy with where she's at, jumping off the bike. And like I said, I'll play with the timing later, but I might move on to another scene next week. But this is where I get really nitpicky with stuff, and I'll play with timing a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's all there. We have all the ingredients I need from the animatic to polish off this scene. So I'm excited.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, all in all, an extremely productive stream tonight, both from an artistic standpoint and just from getting our geek on.
Yes. And next week I'll find another spot, and then we'll do it all again.
Sounds good. We'll have to find something else, and we'll see if I can capture that magic once again. And it is interesting, just to close out. I don't think I actually ever realized why my top 5 were my top 5 until we talked about it tonight.
Yeah, I think we should flesh them out a little bit. I'm curious to hear because we talked about the Spotless Mind one and Inglourious Basterds. We went through that, but we didn't touch on Fight Club, and I wanted to hear your spin on that too.
Oh, that was a seminal moment. I mean, from the standpoint, the whole thing was. To not put too fine a point on it, this could go on for another hour, but basically Fight Club, partially, it's not entirely about this. There's a lot of themes that it discusses in both the book and the movie. The movie is actually a pretty faithful adaptation of the book, although they completely changed the ending. And Palahniuk has said that he prefers Jim Olds' ending that he wrote for the movie over his own ending for the book. Anyway, that movie came out in 98 as well. Or 99 actually, and I was 18, so I was becoming an adult man at that point. Yeah. And I watched that movie, and it was so clear to me that it was a commentary, and this is before toxic masculinity was a thing. But that's what Palahniuk was talking about, the dangers of toxic masculinity, the dangers of allowing your outcast status to define you and poison you, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the thing that's so frustrating about how it's been perverted by the very people that Chuck Palahniuk was warning against, right? Yeah. I mean, I saw that movie and I'm like, okay, this is the type of person I don't want to be, right? And then there's also the conversation about consumerism in the United States, which I also find extremely valuable, right? And just, I mean, the script was a brilliant script, and it was brilliantly performed by Edward Norton and Brad Pitt and Helena Bonham Carter. Just, I mean, one of the few David Fincher movies that I like. I'm not a huge David Fincher fan, but I really loved his visual take on Fight Club, and so yeah, I mean, it came along at a time in my life where I was starting to settle in on what I believed the notion of what being a man was. Yeah. And I saw this movie and I'm like, oh, this is a warning for me to not be like these people. Right. Yeah. And so it shaped me in a significant way. And this is a funny aside, but I remember when the DVD came out and they had this big collector's edition with all these different commentary tracks, and it's actually really good. I mean, it's got a commentary track between Chuck Palahniuk and Jim Uhls, and Brad Pitt and David Fincher have a commentary track. I mean, there's a lot of really good stuff on it. Mm-hmm. But so I go and buy it, and I'm at Target, I think is where I bought it. And I check out, and there's a kid about my age, maybe a little bit younger. Mind you, I was like, the DVD came out, I think, in early 2000, so I was 19 at this point. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't have been much older than about 17 or 18. He was still in high school. I was just in college. Basically contemporaries. And he scans the thing. He sees it and scans. He's like, oh, Fight Club. I love this movie. I'm like, yeah, man. and I go on that rant that I just went on, right? How it shaped me, what it meant to me about masculinity and the notion of consumerism in the United States.
Mhm.
And his eyes glaze over. And when I finished going on my screed, he goes, "I just like the fighting." It just, the whole movie just went right over his head. He had literally no idea what the movie was actually about.
Yeah, that's funny, but it's sad. But that's the thing about movies. Movies, there's something for everybody. I
Oh
guess.
yeah, yeah. Interestingly, like, so Chuck Palahniuk actually went on to write 2 sequels to Fight Club, both graphic novels actually.
Wow.
And I haven't read the third one, but I read the second one, and towards the end of it, Palahniuk actually writes himself into the comic book
Well, that's funny.
and goes outside onto his front porch in Portland where there's a bunch of Fight Club fans standing on the thing, uh, like cheering for Tyler Durden, and like, I support Tyler Durden, and he starts yelling. It's like, don't you understand that he was the bad guy? Yelling at the Fight Club fans because they're so stupid they didn't understand what the point of the book was about. And
That's
it's true. I mean, like, my ex-girlfriend always hated Fight Club because she thought that it was like lionizing
oh
toxic
yeah
masculinity. And I explained to her, I was like, no, that's actually not, that's not it. That's exactly the opposite of what the book is
yeah
about.
yeah.
And she was like, oh wow. And it's like, and it's just, it's frustrating when things get kind of taken over
Yeah.
by the fandom, and a lot of the meaning is lost as a result of it. But yeah, I mean, that was Fight Club. Um, so, but we're at over an hour now.
Yeah, yeah. We'll call it good for tonight. But
But yeah, I mean, we still haven't talked about Brick or no. I think that's the only one of the 5 we haven't talked about at this point.
we'll save it for next week.
Yeah,
Do that.
but in any case, lots of progress today, and anybody watching definitely got an inside baseball on things that I like about movies. In addition to, they actually got to see a rare moment where I'm just gushing about something rather than criticizing it.
Yeah,
See everybody out there, I do like things. I do like things.
yeah,
Just not what you like. Everything that you like is bad. So,
yeah. But
all right.
cool.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in or after the fact, and we'll see you next week. Stay safe out there, everybody. Have a good night. Good night.